Hi, welcome back to the F1 Couple podcast. My name is Charlotte.
And I'm Oscar.
And today we are going to talk about the absolute car crash, no pun intended, Hungarian Grand Prix that we had this weekend. So, to start off, our winners for the weekend, and in true Oscar fashion, it's the winner of the race.
Yeah, but this time I've gone with the whole team, not just the driver, because I think it was a team effort in the truest sense from Alpine to get Ocon that win. I mean, I think we have to start by saying that, yeah, obviously there was, whenever you get a driver that's from the midfield winning, there's going to have to be quite a large element of luck thrown in there, and turn one was chaos on that one. A complete lottery, a lottery that Ocon fully won coming out of that MP2. And yeah, then with a red flag put out and Mercedes botching whatever they did, Lewis having to pit a lap later, he was then in the lead and pretty much performed a perfect race. After that, Vettel challenged him on a couple of occasions, but never really looked like getting past, and Ocon just seemed in control. And it's quite amazing how in control he seemed, given that I don't even know if he's led a race in F1 before that. Like, he might have led a lap or two, but I'm not even convinced he has.
But now he's led the third most laps all season. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know it was a bit of a lottery, but I do also think that he managed himself very well. And when the chaos was going on, he pounced on that opportunity, and I think that was skill. And going right back to when we started doing this, I said I didn't really rate him particularly highly. I take it back.
yeah, I think he should. But it is worth noting that he was helped considerably by his teammate Alonso.
Well, of course.
Yeah, he wouldn't. I'm 100% sure he wouldn't have won that race if it wasn't for Alonso being his teammate. I think pretty much anyone else on the grid, maybe except Verstappen, if they were in that other Alpine car, they wouldn't have been able to hold Hamilton up like Alonso was. He held him up for it seemed like lap after lap. I think it was 10. I think it was 10. It was 10 in total.
I thought it was 6.
Hamilton was right behind you, I think, on 55, and he eventually got past on 65, I think. So
I did really like that meme with the really, really stretched out.
The really wide Alonso. Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, like you say, like nobody else would have been able to do that, and it's just Alonso's class, I guess, that came out there, and it was just great.
Yeah, I always I love Alonso and Hamilton battles. Obviously we had them back in sort of 07 when they were teammates at McLaren, Hamilton's first season. But I remember especially, I can't remember what year, maybe 2017 or 18 in Mexico, when Alonso was in a McLaren that shouldn't have really been fighting Mercedes, but they were for whatever reason, and they were having some really great battles despite the pace difference. And that is exactly what happened again here. And the quote that I sort of feel for Alonso that came into my head when I was watching it is, Alonso never leaves an inch, but he always leaves a centimetre, because it's always like really hard but fair racing. Like, he always leaves you just enough so you're not off the track, but not enough so you can have enough space to be comfortable.
You're really proud of yourself.
I did. I liked that when that came into my head. I was like, yeah, I should get it on a t-shirt or something.
I'm still a little confused, but I'm...
Yeah, well, because like an inch is that big, but a centimetre's that little bit less, and he leaves that much. But he's not ever going to give you that inch.
I think the imperial metric thing is doing something funny.
For anyone who doesn't know, maybe yourself, an inch is bigger than a centimetre.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
What?
Yeah.
Who knew? Yeah. I think we should end on that one. Yeah, it was nice speaking to you. No, sorry, that wasn't funny, was it?
One little thing I want to add is that, we talk about the two drivers, but the team also did a good job. Well, I say the team. I think on the formation lap the lap to the grid after the red flag, obviously Hamilton stayed out, but then Ocon came in, so then he was the first driver to a gamble. I don't really think it was a gamble. I think it was something that like obviously had to be done, and Mercedes just like messed it up basically. But you know, when you're the first one to do something, you need to be a little bit brave to do that. So credit to the team as well.
And I was listening to the team radios after the Bottas Stroll palaver, and they were all saying it was still too wet to come in.
Yeah.
And I think that obviously they said how quickly the track was changing, and I think it would have been a bit too much of a risk for Hamilton to have come in, but then almost he couldn't win.
Yeah, we'll come on to talk about Hamilton and his mishap a little bit later in a little bit more detail. So
okay, I'll shut up then.
Well,
I know my
listeners wait. I think we'll move on to our next driver.
Yeah, in some ways, I agree and disagree with you about the fact that this person is in this category. And that person is Vettel. And the reason I think is fairly obvious why I think he is probably the biggest loser of the entire weekend.
Yeah.
Is that he had his podium, he got his champagne, he got his trophy, and then it was all taken away, apart from the champagne, I assume.
Yeah.
And he had an incredible race, and it was almost unlucky, but also at the same time, that was a huge mistake on the team's part. I know he probably couldn't have done a lot about it because Hamilton was fighting him so hard at that point. But also they should have known. So I don't know. It was a tricky one.
Yeah, he was obviously DQ'd for not having enough fuel in the car, but it wasn't quite not having enough fuel in the car. It was not having enough fuel, not having a litre of fuel that could be extracted from the car. So there was Omar Safnauer said that there was 1.4 litres of fuel left in the car, but they were only able to extract 0.3 of a litre of it for whatever reason. So there, I don't know. I kind of hold out hope that it might get changed because they can like take their. From my understanding, is it's being taken to like the car's being taken to an FIA. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, like safe zone or quarantine it basically. So they can't make any more changes to the car. But then they can basically take the car apart as much as they need so they can extract that fuel. So it's still possible that fuel sample will be able to give them, but, you know, even then it might be, well, you need to be able to provide that half an hour after the race, however long it should be. And the DQ might still stand. But
wait, so hang on, I don't understand. This is the first I'm hearing of this. Why could they only get the 0.3 out?
I don't know why, but for whatever reason, the other 1.1 litres was stuck somewhere, or I don't exactly know how they get out. I imagine, you know, they were the hose pipe ciphering it out, but they must have something that extracts it, and for whatever reason, that didn't work fully.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's
so
often with disqualifications afterwards, you're like, yeah, well, they'll probably appeal, but I'm pretty sure that won't get overturned because it's just like an infringement with the car, like the front wing was not to the correct dimensions, or the car was too low, or the tyre pressures were too low, or something like that, and you can't really defend that. But when they're saying there is still fuel in the car, then you're like, well, if you can get that fuel out, does that still mean that the sample has been given and that's okay? So I we'll just have to wait and see.
I don't really honestly think that it's going to be overturned because, like you said, the rule is you have to give that fuel sample at within.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that is. I don't know the exact rule on it, but it's that you have to be able to. You have to have. It will be a loophole with the wording. Like the wording is you have to have a litre of fuel left in it, at least a litre of fuel left in your car,
and give a sample,
so you can provide a sample. Then it's like we have that amount left in the car, and we can provide a sample, but for whatever reason something's failed and we can't get it out of the car. If it is, you have to be able to extract a litre of fuel. Then that's key because then you aren't able to extract that. If it's just have it in the car or be able to extract it is the key wording there, and we'll find out. I mean, Aston Martin, they haven't even launched their appeal yet. They've only launched at time of recording, their willingness to have an appeal, basically. But there was a lot of confusion after the race where this all went in and it said that he'd been disqualified, and then the FIA released the final classification. He was still classified second, and then on the Monday, I don't know what time it was, about 3 p.m. they re-released it with him disqualified. So it was all a bit of a mess from the FIA on that. Yeah.
I really want to start recording so I can go and Google this. I need to know.
Yeah, well, we'll leave that for you to do and for our viewers and listeners to do
You're okay to cover
afterwards.
for the rest, right?
Yeah, well, you're just going to pop off
Yeah,
here and hear the door shut in a minute. But if we actually bring it back a little bit to Vettel's performance itself, I thought, if you ignore the fact that he got disqualified for something that wasn't to do with any performance gain at all, he had a really good race. He actually had a really rubbish start. He admitted that himself, and if you look at the onboard footage, he loses a whole host of positions, drops to about 15th before turn 1, and then after turn 1, he's third. So, it's not necessarily all in the start. You can make up those places almost immediately.
I think that in order for it not to be all in the start, you do need a Bottas.
Yeah, you do need someone to do a little bit of bowling into turn 1. Yeah, but after that point, he was second when obviously Hamilton came in and just held that place. Like I said, he challenged Ocon a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bless you. Challenged Ocon a little bit with, his car clearly looked quicker than the Alpine, but he never had anything that looked like it was going to be a decisive move. But yeah, it's just solid P2. Obviously, Hamilton was there about a second behind him at the end, but too little, too late from him. And yeah, P2 before he was DQ'd.
I don't think it was too little, too late. I just think he did plenty. It was just Alonso went now.
Yeah,
that's not happening. All right, moving on. So
this one's going to make you very happy. It makes us both very happy. I think pretty much.
That's only because you were like, yeah, I was right.
Yeah, pretty much everyone was very happy about this, and that's of course Williams finally getting some points.
Except George, who was blubbering like a baby for some reason.
Yeah. And not just points from both drivers, and 7th and 8th after Vettel's disqualification, which is huge for them. This weekend, it's gone from them being on absolutely nothing, tied with Haas at the bottom, just above on, because George has got a couple of 11th places, and now they're 8th. They're ahead of Alfa Romeo because they just scored so much. And I was looking back through the races, and this is their best weekend as a team since Monza in 2017. Wow, that's a lot of points. I think it was exactly the same as 7th and 8th. I think that, if I remember correctly, that was the race when Stroll started from second in Monza. So yeah, it's a huge weekend for them, and it didn't look like if I can remind everyone, I called that Russell would get some points in this race.
And I'd just like to remind everyone that you also predicted that Leclerc would be on pole.
I did predict a Ferrari pole, which I was quite far off, but I'll take 1 out of 2. That's pretty good. And yeah, but I was worried after qualifying, and they're both out in Q1. Russell's first time out in Q1 of the year, isn't it? Yeah. I was like, well, sorry guys, that was a terrible prediction. They're going to be right at the back with us this weekend. But no, they were not. They're in the points. Absolutely great. And yeah, Latifi particularly, we've been saying that Russ was going to get some points at some point this season. It's just a matter of time. I didn't really think Latifi was going to be getting points this season. He had the absolute race of his career, and it couldn't have come at a best time. He was the whole of the first stint when he was in third, and I was like, oh my god, Latifi to podium, please, this would be the greatest result of all time. Sadly, not quite to be those lofty heights as after the pit stops, and he dropped back a bit as the faster cars, either overcut him or just sort of a couple of them did overtake him on track as well. But fair enough, you're in the second slowest car, and still to be able to come home second is, genuinely unbelievable.
You mean 7th?
Did I say 7th?
You said second.
I meant 7th. I've just Can't
You
speak. I was just
get a
so
bit carried
shocked.
away,
I was just
you're like,
so
yes.
shocked.
Yeah, and I thought the sweetest thing as well was when he was running in third, that George was like, forget me, like, who cares? Sort him out. Which obviously was for all the George Russell fangirls at home, so they'd all swoon.
Yeah, I mean, he clearly didn't mind that much because during after the red flag, when everyone came into pit, he just sort of jumped ahead of everyone, didn't he? Cheeky, just like, oh, I don't care about everyone else. I'm just going to drive faster in the pit lane and go up to P2.
Have you seen that clip on his radio?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not when, which you can explain to everyone who's listening.
When he's like, he says he's there sitting in his little pit box, I suppose, and he says he's on the radio to his engineer, and he goes, "Can I just go at the front of them?" And he goes, "Negative." And George essentially puts his fingers in his ears and goes la 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 la, and like fully just storms off. But I did read something interesting earlier, and I don't know how true this is, but apparently he technically would have been able to do it if the sun flag, something.
If the light was on the end of the pit lane.
Yeah.
As that was maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It was. I think. Like at the end of it, it was the right thing happened in the end. I don't know what else. I don't know much else he could have done, because even if he'd have slotted into the queue, he'd have been behind Latifi, which was out of position anyway, and he's not going to sit there and wait for the whole of the train to go past. So, going out in first place, yeah, even if it was the wrong thing to do, I imagine there was some communication straight away between the team and the FIA, and there was a sensible arrangement was agreed upon, which was that he would drop back to where he should have been.
Well, that's
and there
the
was
FIA wanted Williams to get points as much as
and there was no penalty applied, because I think I would have been silly, and I think everyone was very sensible about that. George, no, maybe a little bit panicked about what do I do? Just drive out into the front. You can always let people back through. You can't re-overtake people. That wouldn't work. So I think at the end of that incident it worked well.
I am pleased that they took that decision as well.
Yeah.
I think it was just in an impossible situation, really. I think they just let him.
Yeah, it worked out. It was good. Well done by the FAA as well, because they could have done something silly like slapped him with the penalty for overtaking the pit lane. But if they just say, yeah, drop back to where you were, and that's that, you've not gained an advantage, then yeah, I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was also impressed with him at the end, fending off, albeit two very damaged cars in the shape of Ricciardo and Verstappen, who ordinarily would have quite a lot more pace, but they didn't get past him. He held them off really well, so which was great.
I've got a story, but that's fine. I'm going to do it later.
Okay. So I think we've covered the winners of the race pretty nicely there. I think there's arguably quite a lot more people who lost during this race. So without further ado, we'll move on to our losers category. I think the place we have to start here is with the instigator for the turn 1 carnage, and that's of course Valtteri Bottas. He actually did a really good job. Well, I say really good. He did the job that he should be doing, which was backing up Hamilton in qualifying. P2 on this occasion. I mean, depending on which car's faster, whether it's Mercedes or the Red Bull. But anyway, he should always be behind Hamilton, like right behind Hamilton, if not in front of him, because we know he has decent qualifying pace as well. But yeah, he was starting there in P2, and yeah, was there as sort of a rear gunner, I guess, for the Red Bulls at the start. And he did that job pretty well, I guess, protecting Hamilton from them, because he had a pretty rubbish start, passed by, Verstappen and Norris, and Perez might have been alongside, maybe slightly ahead as well, and then completely messed up his braking, right into rear-ended Norris, who then subsequently smashed into the side of Verstappen, and then Bottas himself hit into Perez. So, yeah, that's 3 of the cars you'd expected there to be in the top 5, pretty much out in turn 1.
Yeah, you say he made a mistake, and
Oh! Is this conspiracy theory incoming?
I don't think it's true, but I have enjoyed people going, oh well, clearly Tokyo just made him do that. That was his way of making sure he gets the Mercedes seat in 2022. I like the idea that something like that could happen, but I just don't think it would.
All complete lies, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Completely made up, but it's funny to think about. It's funny that you like can come up with that idea that he's just taking them all out to keep his seat.
It would be good. I mean, I'm sure he's pretty desperate at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure he wouldn't stoop to those levels. Pretty sure.
I don't think so either, but it would be very funny.
But yeah, obviously that incident was the end of his race. He was like his front left wheel hanging off, so parked up at turn 1. What do you think of his penalty though? Do you think 5 places next race? Do you think that's fair?
I think so. A lot of people have been complaining that he's just going to catch that up in the first 2 laps of the race or whatever, but I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And also you have to go back to kind of the whole idea that it's not the outcome. You know, I think that's quite a harsh penalty, really, if you consider that he locked up and hit someone.
Yeah, I think this penalty is exactly spot on. That's my opinion. That yeah, I mean, I think I said last week you usually get 3, 5, or 10 in terms of then I mean you can probably get more, like 15 or 20 or something. I mean you certainly do for that engine penalties and things like that, but I don't think you'd see that. What?
I've just understood the 15-second penalty that Ricciardo gave Norris.
Oh, I see. Wow.
Anyway, moving on.
That was a bit slow.
That was really slow.
Anyone who doesn't understand, then look on Twitter or Instagram or wherever it was. Anyway, so
sorry.
So yeah, 5 is about the middle of what you see. I was thinking back to other instances where there've been lock up at turn 1 and taken some cars out. I think back to Belgium in 2018 when Hulkenberg locked up and caused that quite big crash where Leclerc went over the top of Alonso, and like that was the other way around. Alonso went over the top of Leclerc, and that was the first time where the halo was. Everyone was like, "Oh well, keep the halo because that car's landed on top of it." And Hulkenberg for that incident got 10 places, which I think it was a more serious incident, as in he was going faster and then locked up, and also the conditions were better because it was dry. So taking that,
it was wet as well,
taking that into account, and the fact that it was less of a lock up, plus it was also wet. I think that 5 places is pretty much bang on. Obviously, Red Bull are annoyed because it's quite easy to overtake around Spa, and although it's not going to be like 2 or 3 laps, they'll make them up because he'll also need to get a good start off that, and qualify well, which isn't a guarantee. But I think he will be able to recover that in Spa, whereas in Hungary he might not have been able to recover that at least as quickly. I mean, we see what Bottas is like in traffic anyway. He's not the most prolific at getting past. Yeah, I think that's right. I think 5 seconds.
I do think, and I'm not one to agree with Christian Horner very often, but I do think he has a small point. And I know that you're like, oh well, this is just racing, but what Bottas did. This is something I can never get my head around, actually, is the person who causes the problem gets the penalty, fine, but then the person who's the victim of it doesn't get anything. So they are now in the position where they're going to have to pay for a new car, basically.
Yeah, well, a new 2. A new 2.
Two new cars, and have potential penalties for various things. Lots of cars are in this position. Potentially have, like, penalties for having to replace the engine too many times, whatever. But that's not taken into account when these things are decided. I feel like it almost should be a free pass if there's something like that where it's clearly not the other person's fault. Yeah,
I think that's an interesting point, actually, because what lots of people, I remember definitely Leclerc or someone at Ferrari had said that the other team should pay for the damage in his incident. But I think what you were kind of saying there is the team who were the victim of the incident, basically, they should pay for that damage, but it shouldn't be considered in their cost cap. Is that kind of what you're saying?
No.
Because I think that would be...
potentially, yeah.
I think that would possibly be a fair thing, but
I mean more to do with the fact, like, penalty-wise, like engine penalties and things.
oh, you think those engine? No, I don't agree with that, because then you'll get into the situation where as soon as there's any contact, the team will be like, oh, the engine's written off, we'll just get a free one. They do that every single time there's an incident and their car's DNF. They take them back afterwards and just like smack them with a screwdriver and a spanner and be like, oh yeah, FIA, look, it's broken, just ignore the spanner marks, and it was all from the crash.
Yeah, but you can tell from the crash that was, things like this. It makes no sense to me that they would be penalised for that. Like, they would just mind their own business, not doing anything wrong.
They should have built a stronger car then. I mean, these are the things that you can protect the engine more if you like make it heavier. I mean, then you'll be slower, but I mean, obviously, I'm not being that serious about that point, but I'm just sort of playing devil's advocate, I guess. I think that it's fair that I think basically it's fair as it is, because that's racing. It's the luck of the draw. Over 10 years, it will even itself out roughly. That every team would have had probably the same amount of instances. So
unless you're George Russell.
yeah. Right, stop being so down. He's well. So yeah, I think in terms of like engine penalties and the other teams paying damage, I think just stay as it is now. I think that it's okay.
I just think it's confusing.
If you're like, the team should be able to take into account a bit of the cost of it. They should be able to take damage into their budget. And like that's life. That's life. That's running a business. If you have setbacks in certain other places, you have to find other places to make cuts.
Yeah, no, that's not. I'm not saying anything to do with the.
Yeah, I know you're not, but other people are.
But also, I do think I know you say that the teams could then go and just smash up the engine, but the way it is, technically speaking, yeah, sure, you might get a ban, or you might get the penalties, but somebody currently could cause damage on a car, basically cause the other team to get a penalty.
Yeah, but that's just how it works. I think if like the rule change I would make is say, well, the team should have more than 3 engines to use in a year. They should have 4. They should have 5. They should have 6. Whatever. Because when it's this low, if it's just like 3 at the moment, but what if in the next reg change it's like 2, and then it is like, well, if you have 2 instances in the first 3 races and lose those, well, even if you have 1 instance in the first couple of races and lose that engine, then you have like a whole season to do on 1, and obviously that's not going to be possible. So I the rule change I would make is go back to allowing more. Yes, I know that kind of then is going against the cost cap idea of things, because that's what the rule of the cost cap is doing, and the 3 engines is trying to reduce those costs of having to make that many engines or purchase that many engines. But I think that would be the most sensible thing. Say 4 or 5 and then take that into account. What do you think? I don't think you can say, because it's fine for an incident like this where it's like, obviously all of the blame was on Bottas. There is no one else who's to blame here. You can say, okay, yeah, so that penalty for that engine, don't worry about that. But then what if it's an incident where it's sort of like 60-40?
Well, then they would have to. What I'm saying is, in places like this, like instances like this, I don't understand. I understand why Red Bull would have to fix the damage from last week's situation, but when they are just an innocent bystander who happens to get smashed to pieces, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, but then like there has to be some distinguishing line at some point.
Well, that's what the FIA is for, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, but it's just they're like with the other, like the rest of the penalty system, it's quite gradual. It goes from 5 seconds to 10 seconds to a drive-through, which I know is about 15 or 20 or however much it is. Yeah, about 15 seconds probably. And then to a 10-second stop and go, which is what can be like 20-25. So like that works, but this then goes from you have like a 20-place penalty for having to replace your whole engine, or you have nothing. There's then no gradient, and it's such a big difference.
But to me, that's just messed up anyway.
I think we should move on because we're kind of repeating ourselves. But
no, seriously though, the thing is, Bottas has got a 5-place grid penalty for this, right?
Yeah.
And some of the teams that were innocent bystanders could have a 20-place grid penalty.
Yeah, I know, but I just think that's part of racing. I think that's my opinion. Like, you know, some people you're going to get in crashes and you're going to have stuff. You can get in a crash and have an engine fire, and then that's the whole car gone. You know, and you have to replace all of those bits. And yeah, I mean, it would still only be the engine penalties, but it could have been a way that they have that crash and the engine's completely fine. You know, it's just racing for me. That's just how it is. I wouldn't want to change that. Otherwise, it would be. I would still think there'd be people saying after any crash, yeah, we need to replace the engine. With the one in Silverstone, Honda were pretty confident they'd be able to at least, if not fully extract that engine, bits of it they'd still be able to use. And then you just take away any element of that, any element of trying to salvage parts, and then that's going against the cost cap idea.
I think
because as soon as there's anything where any bit of the engine's damaged, or even if it's not, they'd just be like, yeah, write that off and get a new one.
I think you're right that we need to move on. I don't agree with your extra engine thing. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay, yeah.
Just because
everyone else, let us know what you think. I think that going back up to 4 or 5 engines would completely take out this argument.
Yes, but then I think you put teams like Haas and Williams in a really difficult position.
Why? Because of the cost? Yeah, I guess.
They're in a difficult place as it is.
Yeah, I know, but if there's still a cost cap, then everyone will be using that same cost cap. Just say, put it up by however much it would be for an extra 1 engine per season. You know, I think that's how it would work.
But do those teams have that budget, is my point.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. With how the cost cap is now, it's meant so that every team will probably be using that much. I'm pretty sure.
I just meant, and it doesn't matter. Let's just move on.
Yeah, let's move on to someone we're going to talk about another 5-place penalty. So we could kind of carry over the conversation. We're going to talk about Stroll. They had pretty much exactly the same incident to Bottas. Locked up in turn 1. He actually swerved quite violently out of the way of hitting the eventual race winner Ocon, instead going across the grass and smashing into the side of Leclerc, who then spun out Ricciardo as well. So almost exactly the same thing. One less driver involved in this one than compared to Bottas. At the time, I said that I thought that was some of the worst driving I've ever seen. In hindsight, I take that back, having seen the replays and the fact that he was going to have almost exactly the same incident as Bottas. Don't get me wrong, it was bad, but it wasn't the worst driving I've ever seen. I just thought, when I first saw it, I thought he just was going way too fast and was trying to make an overtake on the grass when it was wet, and I just thought that was absolutely terrible.
Just a lock-up.
Yeah, but it was actually just exactly the same as Bottas, just a bit too hot in the wet. So 5-place grid penalty for him as well. So I don't know, I've just said I think it's pretty much the same incident as Bottas. So for me, yeah, that's fine as well. No complaints for exactly the same reasons as I mentioned before. Anything else for you to say? I mean, nothing else happened for Stroll after that. That's him out of the race too.
Yeah, he just didn't fancy it that day, did he?
Yeah, really? just messed it up.
No, I think we should move on.
Yeah.
And I think that's another very obvious team to put in this is Red Bull. I mean, it's unusual for Red Bull, I think, to be involved in an incident where they are innocent bystanders.
Yeah, because they were completely honest.
Yeah.
Usually they have, I don't know. Usually you can apportion a little bit to when Verstappen has an incident, yeah, you can say, well, he's an aggressive driver, so even if it's not fully his fault, he's probably got a part to blame. But I mean, he really wasn't this case. He was just driving his line.
And to be honest, I was actually quite upset after this whole thing happened because it just felt very unfair. Without wanting to sound like a 3-year-old, like, it's not fair. It just didn't feel fair. And I know you're going to go, oh, that's racing.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, it's like he's put an incredible fight, I guess, against, not Verstappen, that's him, against Hamilton this year. The team has been doing an incredible job. And, yeah, that happens. And it just, like, I know there's the drama, and I know a lot of people found that exciting, but for me, I didn't find it exciting. I was just like, come on. Because for me, the exciting thing is Red Bull being ahead and then Lewis trying to catch up with them. And I don't know whether it's going to be, I don't know. Because I just think the last 2 races with Max basically being taken, Max being taken out by Mercedes, that is just, it just seems unfair.
Yeah, but that is racing. The luck it comes around, it goes around, you know.
Yeah, I know, but
Mercedes had that terrible luck where Bottas was just welded on.
Yeah, but the difference there is that it's the first time ever that like Max has been in this position, and he's really fighting Hamilton, and Hamilton is now ahead. Maybe on merit, maybe not. Well,
Yeah.
not on merit actually.
Probably on merit of his driving, not on merit of the car. I think if either of them went at any point during the season when either of them are ahead, I think it's been on merit. Either of them would, in my eyes, be completely wonderful world champions this year. I mean, Hamilton has been world champion so many times in the past. Verstappen, I have no doubt he's going to be world champion so many times in the future. So,
I think the thing for me is like, you know, it's not all about that person's driving. It's about the team.
yeah.
And with the team and his driving, whether you like him or not, which I know is a huge thing that has definitely come to.
I think that pretty much covers everyone, whether like those who like him and those who don't. And there aren't many people I think who are just like, yeah, he's alright.
No, my point is, whether you like him or not, you can't deny that he's done a really good job this year, and the car has been the best car that they've had.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, it almost feels a little bit like Lewis is ahead by not very much, based on the fact that Max couldn't do 2 races.
Yeah, kind of.
And like that to me, as somebody who's watching it, I don't want that.
But really, because I'm kind of exactly the opposite. I want it to be a close fight. If it was just the best car won every weekend, then Verstappen would have won every single race. But no one wants that. That would have been boring. The title would be decided in like a few races' time.
No, that's not what I mean though. I just mean that I think that now Lewis is just going to pull ahead.
No, I really disagree with you. I think this sets up the championship really well, where we're halfway through, and the car that isn't the fastest car is the one that's leading the championship.
Well, I
And
guess
now-
I'll see you in 4 months.
Yeah, and now Red Bull need to chase that down.
I
think they will. I mean, it's not that far ahead. It's like 8 points.
Yeah,
or
no, I know.
10 points. I can't remember.
But
I don't know how much it is. I've not looked after the disqualification of Vettel, so I don't know exactly. But it's in the realms of a race win, isn't it? It's a race win or two race wins.
He'll be now
Yeah, we comfortably in.
15 ahead.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. So like, if Verstappen wins the next 2 races and Hamilton finishes second, then he'll take the lead again. So
Yeah.
it's still very, very much what's played for. I mean, don't write Verstappen off yet. I mean,
I'm not writing him off, but
I think it's so tentatively poised. It's very, very exciting heading into after the summer break.
My fear, I think, is that his temper's going to get the better of him.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, we didn't really see them on track together. I was a bit worried after Verstappen had got his damage and Hamilton had made his mistake that Hamilton was then going to try and get past him. Verstappen was just going to swipe him out of the race. To be honest,
So good.
that would have been terrible. He would have lost a lot of credibility. But yeah, so I don't think he'll ever do an intentional taking out of Hamilton. He won't do a Silverstone revenge thing. I think that would be ridiculous and lose him a lot of fans.
I think, yeah, okay. The thing with Max is, yes, he can be quite aggressive, and yeah, he has been very immature in the past. But you know, given the fact that he was a teenager, yeah, we were all pretty immature at that age. I think that he's fair as a driver, and I think given that he's been chasing Hamilton for forever, basically, and he's used to being in that position, I do think that's made him quite fair in the sense that I don't think that he would do something intentionally.
Yeah, I don't think any of the drivers on the grid, well, maybe except one, would do something like that. But yeah, one? Huh?
Or just Bottas?
Yeah, just Bottas. Yeah. Yeah. So I think Verstappen as well, I think he did well to actually get to the end of that race. He was missing the whole of one of his barge boards and still came home in ninth, which isn't bad.
It's story time.
Yeah.
This is where I reference a bit of stuff I've seen on social media.
Okay.
Did you see the onboard when he overtook Schumacher?
No.
His engineer comes on and goes, "It's not bad for half a car."
Oh yeah, I did hear that. Yeah, I heard that. Yeah. And with Perez in the other half, it was just terminal damage. In terms of the penalty for him, the engine penalty, he did take one in the last race. He got a whole load of new engine parts because he was starting at the back in Silverstone. So he might still be okay. Because I don't think they'd have put that brand new engine in the car anyway. They'd have still been on the same schedule. So he could be okay. But Verstappen, I think it was Perez who needed his engine replaced. I think Verstappen's was okay. Well, obviously, he went on to finish the race. Well, one fun fact I want to put out there is that these last two races for Red Bull have been their worst two consecutive races since 2008, when Webber and Coulthard were driving in that car, which is pretty crazy. That's before Red Bull had even got near winning a race, really. So
I forgot one of my fun facts that I saw earlier.
Oh yeah.
And none of my facts are original, but neither are yours.
Well, that one was original. I came out with that myself. I was like, I wonder when the last time they had two weekends this bad. I was like, oh my god, 2008, that's ages ago.
I saw this earlier, that since the last time we were in Hungary, Ocon has more wins than Bottas does.
Wow, that is a good stat. Yeah. Another unoriginal one was that France have produced the most race-winning drivers in the last 3 years. So yeah. I mean, I think we'll move on from Red Bull talk.
Is that just two though?
Yeah, only two. But the last
Most
time
of them have been Dutch, Finnish, or British. I was like, what's the other one? Oh yeah, what I am.
The last time there had been two was when Raikkonen last won in 2018 in USA. Anyway, talking of Raikkonen, that is a beautiful segue for us to move on to the next loser, who was Alfa Romeo. This race for me really reminds me of their one in Imola, when there was a crazy race and they just completely failed to capitalise on it in any way. Giovinazzi, obviously, he gambled at the start coming in for dries, but that didn't pay off as soon as there was a red flag after a couple of turns, and then he was right at the back. And not only that, he got a 10-second stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and it wasn't even close. I think it goes that you can get 5 seconds, 10 seconds drive through, stop and go, depending on how, if you're only a couple of kilometres an hour over, you get the lowest penalty. But he was 25 kilometres an hour over the limit, which is 20% more than you're allowed to go. So I don't know what happened there, but he must have, completely forgotten where he was meant to be braking, basically. And then Raikkonen got a penalty himself as well.
It's unusual that you see Mazepin in a mess. And
in a crash that wasn't his fault, I know, right? So that was 10 seconds for Raikkonen, who came home and got a point in 10th after Vettel's disqualification, but Alfa are now behind Williams. Williams did exactly what Alfa Romeo should have been doing, capitalising like that. So pretty bad.
Were there only 13 people that finished in the end, or got classified in the end?
13. That would sound about right.
Because there were definitely 6 out, and then
it was Raikkonen in 10th. So then it was Ricciardo, Schumacher, and Gio.
Okay.
Yeah, not good. Yeah. So I'll quickly sum up the other losers, and these are just sort of everyone involved in the turn 1 crash. Firstly, Norris, he made a pretty good start, up to about 2nd place, and then rear-ended by Bottas. And I managed to trundle round behind the safety car, but when he came in, the red flag team clearly thought there was too much damage on that car and retired him. And his teammate Ricciardo as well, who have made such a good start. Oh my god, his start was so good, and he's so unlucky because if he hadn't have just got caught by Sainz, he would have won that race, because he would have been in 2nd place and in a faster car, one that could have probably pulled away. But no, he did get caught up a little bit in the Stroll and Leclerc incident, and yeah, finished 11th. Absolutely nothing to show for it, which is super sad because it was like fraction from being Ricciardo on the top step again. So I'm pretty cut up.
It'll
and
happen.
Hmm?
It might happen.
yeah, and then the other one who was involved was Leclerc. Again, like we said before, innocent party is Stroll just sort of turned into a aquaplaning lawnmower and smashed into his side pod, and yeah, a huge amount of damage, and that was him out as well. So,
But it did lead to some quality social media from the
yeah, it was his tweet afterwards where it's like, oh, nice bowling guys, or whatever it was he said. It was pretty funny.
Did you see then the Norris thing? And then Science goes, broken.
It's broken. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's quite a hefty list of losers, and there's not that many people left, but
I think we need to congratulate anyone who's still listening.
yeah. Nevertheless, we'll wrap up the rest of the drivers in a list of honourable mentions. I think the first of them who kind of felt like he was more of a loser really than a winner, but could argue for both, is Hamilton. That would be why he's here, because I couldn't really decide.
Hamilton, however, I do think won the prize for the two funniest moments of the entire race.
Yeah, I can think of one when he was he was the only one taking the restart. Oh my god,
we were actually proper belly laughing.
We were proper.
Weren't we?
I think pretty much everyone was from reaction I've seen and heard. Is everyone was just absolutely screaming at that moment when he was the only one on the grid. It was just I won't see anything like that before. I don't even think it would have been topped if everyone had come into the pit lane. I think that wouldn't have been as good as
the safety car impacted us.
yeah. Well, it was I think it was the driver of the safety car. Not the safety car, it's the medical car.
Yeah, sorry.
He tweeted saying, "Oh, thanks Hamilton for not leaving us on our own," which I absolutely love. That was great banter.
The second thing was when he comes on his radio and goes, "Am I lost?"
Yeah, that was good as well. He just couldn't believe it.
He was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah, my mum liked that one.
Yeah, it was tough. It was a tough one for Mercedes because
Bottas just took out half the field.
Well, yeah, that was pretty Welsh. But I mean, in terms of the fiasco with them not coming to the pit lane, I think Ocon, it might have been Ocon himself afterwards said, or Mercedes himself, but I'm pretty sure Ocon said that they were sort of stuck between a rock. Or was it Russell? Yeah, that would make more sense. Russell defending Mercedes. Yeah, you're right. That they were sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place because if they come in first, then wouldn't be able to safely come back out of the queue because everyone else would just be going past. I can see that might have been right. It could be the case that is exactly what would have happened, and if he'd have tried to come out, it'd have been an unsafe release, and it'd have been like Kimi. So yeah, proper tough one for them to take. Whereas like you'll either be last or you'll be last. Like there's no other option. I think probably still coming in would have been sensible. I guess the difficulty that they had that other teams didn't have was obviously you have garages either side of you. Like you have ones behind you which people are going to come in and then leave a gap for you. But also they didn't have a teammate to come in and have a gap for him to come out into. So
yeah, and I think
properly, yeah, it's just
the other side of it
sucky situation
is that it was changing so quickly. Oh, sorry, I've got an itchy ear. The dryness, the
conditions of the track. I don't know what you're trying to say.
Yeah. The amount of liquid on the track was changing so quickly and him being in that first place, he had to make that decision, and he could have risked being the only one to come in as well. Yeah. I think it was a very difficult situation for him. Yeah,
I still think he should come in because they did one lap round and it was clearly dry. Going on dry was clearly the right thing to do. So, what actually surprised me the most was that no one had gambled going on to dries coming out after the red flag on the formation lap. I was for sure thinking that someone near the back was going to be on dries, and then they'd have been leading the race like by 10 seconds.
Come on,
for
Williams.
The first few laps. Yeah, I was so surprised that we didn't see like.
I'm sure there's reasons for it.
Yeah, one of the Haas is doing that. the reason probably is because they didn't know the track conditions, but I can't believe they didn't have. Of course, they have people out on the side of the track being like, it's wet. If not, it's a red flag. Just send someone over there. They can just walk there, probably.
Probably, it's just making things up.
No, I'm sure they just send, get a call someone, I don't know, catering or something that's not doing anything at the moment. Oh yeah, can you take a wander over to the track? They have actual people to do this sort of stuff. And they'd have seen that the track was bone dry.
If they'd have tweeted, they'd have got some people in the stands to tell them.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that's allowed though.
Well, no. Can someone tell us if the track's still wet, please? But I found it unbelievable that no one had gambled.
I do think it must be difficult visually to judge it, because they were asking all of the drivers, the engineers were going, is it wet, is it dry? I think it's almost one of those things you have to feel.
Yeah, but I still can't believe that no one gambled. But even then, going out on dry side, so yeah, I think...
Could have had Schumacher winning.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've certainly been leading for quite a lot of laps.
Well...
Because,
Well, he normally finishes, about a minute and a half behind?
Yeah, so they come out 10 seconds ahead, so it'd have been still caught pretty quick. But if it was Gasly, say, who had really lost out at the start, if he'd have done that, then it'd have been happy days.
But instead it was
instead it was no one capitalised like that, which I was like, get me involved. I should be one of the strategists. I made the right call.
You did also say get someone from catering to walk out onto the track, so I don't know if that's...
Yeah, not take a walk on the track, walk out to the circuit, the furthest point, but...
I know you just meant to get them to sort of lie down, have a bit of a feel.
Yeah. Anyway, if we can sort of segue back to Hamilton's race itself.
Oh yeah, I remember.
He, from then on, after that quite big mistake, had a very solid drive. Well, he got pretty stuck during the first stint. He got past Gasly, but that was I think it was Gasly, yeah. But that was it. He didn't look like he was going to get any further up. And yeah, then he pitted. He was the first one to pit, and sort of triggered the window of everyone then coming in. One lap later, Verstappen and Ricciardo come in, and he managed to jump them, which I think was crucial for his race. So he didn't get in any unnecessary...
otherwise Verstappen would
Otherwise Verstappen would have been shunning off the track left, right, and centre. And then he seemed to be making decent progress. He was up to 4th behind Sainz, but he was pretty stuck there. Didn't really look like he was going to get past. So then he took the gamble that Mercedes love to do around Hungary. They did great effect a couple of years ago against Verstappen, and nearly worked out perfectly again this time.
It wasn't for Alonso.
Yeah, I was a bit sceptical because it was the fact that he had already been struggling overtaking people, and that he would be losing track position to Alonso as well. I was a little bit sceptical, but as it turned out, I shouldn't have been, because he came home second instead of what would have been third. So it worked out in the end. But he certainly took the tough road there. As I said before already, such a great battle with Alonso.
You were the strategist there, would you?
Yeah.
Anyway,
such a great battle with Alonso.
Are you done with Hamilton for now?
Yeah, I think moments of losing, moments of winning, which is why he has to be here. But big winner in the championship. So
I don't want to go there again.
Yeah. Shall we move on? Move on to our next guy? And
this is my highlight of all of the post-race interviews.
Yeah. Carlos Sainz?
Yeah.
Go on then.
I think you need to start inserting these clips.
Yeah.
Which really won't work for people actually listening to it as a podcast, but
yeah.
Sorry. But basically, when he's talking, he's having an interview at the end, and then they hear that he's got to go to the stewards, and he has no idea about it.
Yeah,
and he looks like a child who's been sent off to detention.
Yeah, he was just there what? What?
He even put it on Instagram himself, the clip of him, playing for the 15,000th time or something, which is really funny. I enjoyed that.
I was pretty close to giving Sainz a winner, actually. And sort of when it's a podium for Ricciardo, you wouldn't ordinarily see there. Well, at these times where Ferrari aren't a front-running car, You feel like it should be a winner, but I just felt there was just too many flaws in there for me to justify it being a winner. The biggest of which would be in qualifying, where he crashed out in Q2 on his first lap of Q2 it was as well. In the last corner he spun off, which was a bit strange. So he started from 15th, but as we've sort of mentioned with previous drivers, that being towards the back meant you avoided the melee of turn 1. So he was able to he was up to 6th after the restart. And out of those cars, well, out of the cars ahead of him, he was the fastest of them. There's no doubt about that. And he was in 3rd after his stop. He did a pretty good strategy. I can't remember, he ran a bit longer than those who were in front of him originally before the stops.
That was his call as well, which I think was a really
Yeah.
good call.
Yeah, it was. Because the other teams sort of, Ferrari were trying to cover the undercut basically, but Sainz was like, no, I know I can run long and still make this work. And he did that. He did that well. Another little bit of a flaw for me was with you comparing him to his fellow Spaniard, Alonso. Alonso held up Hamilton for 10 laps. Sainz could only hold him up for 2 laps, basically. So, yeah, he could have... I think he was actually fighting very hard for what was at that time 3rd. He really wanted that podium, which he got in the end. Another podium that he's not able to properly celebrate.
50%.
Yeah, he's making a bit of a trend of that.
Which one was the last one?
His first one in Brazil, when Hamilton got a penalty for taking out Albon. So yeah, it was. But all in all, it was a good weekend for Ferrari because versus the McLaren in the championship, three of those 4 cars were taken out in turn 1, and Sainz came home to deliver a whole load of points. So I think Ferrari will be happy at the end a bit, and Sainz will be as well now he has got that podium. But for me, just not quite enough. That mistake in qualifying means he couldn't quite have been a winner for me.
Okay, we have 2 teams left, and then we've talked about everybody.
Yeah,
Shall we?
Yeah, I think we'll include them. I think certainly this next one, they're worthy of including. Under honourable mention is sort of exactly where they should be, and that's of course AlphaTauri. It's just a solid weekend for them. They capitalised on the chaos, maybe not quite as fully as they could have done. Could have been another place or 2 higher up, but on the pace of the car, it's probably about where they should have been. It was 5th and 6th at the end for them, which, yeah, like I say, good points. But, well, they've gained over Aston Martin now. Vettel's been disqualified, but much lower points haul than Alpine, being in 1st and 4th. But yeah, I'll start off with Gasly. I think he had another excellent qualifying. Just what we're coming to expect from him. This time in 5th place, which was...
It's about average for him at the minute, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we've seen him 6th. 6th has been his go-to place. So 5th is probably, it was best of the rest, in truest sense. And
so, it's about average then, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. But he was probably the worst affected driver to not actually get contact in turn 1, because he had to take proper evasive action. Because he was right at the front. So both lucky and unlucky in that respect. But yeah, then he dropped right to the back. And sort of seemed like he was stuck there, but then ran a really long first stint, which meant he undercut a load of cars coming out just behind his teammate. And then he was let past and went on to just have a quick racer, but sort of completely on his own, nowhere near anyone. Was able to do a late pit stop as well and put on some new tyres and set fastest lap. So 5th and fastest lap, pretty good weekend, but feels sort of like what could have been. Because if it avoided the melee at turn 1, again, it could have been him winning that race. So, hey ho.
Oh, I'm thinking in my head. And then the other one, for the other one. Sonoda, I really like listening to his radios because he's so sweet. He's like, am I allowed to do this? Can I do this?
Right, you think he's sweet, yeah, but he's does that some of the time, and then some of the
And
time
then
he's
he has
just
a massive
dropping
temper
these
tantrum.
absolute F-bombs everywhere.
Apparently, I heard he's going to like temperament management or something.
Yeah, well, this Helmut Marko's been like putting him on or made him move to Italy, I think it was. So he's doing like training in terms of like physically, but also I do believe in terms of his temperament and trying to make him a little calmer and things like that.
I like the fiery little one.
I don't particularly want him to change. I like him as he is. He's
Funny.
yeah, maybe he overstepped the line a couple of times, and obviously the team would rather everyone was a droid and had no emotions and was just RaceBot 2000. But as fans, we want to see everyone have a bit of personality, and Tsunoda certainly has a lot of that. In terms of his weekend, though, it was another poor qualifying, and I'm not enjoying seeing him go out in Q1 every week, and it was another one of them. But as we said, for many of the other drivers who did well in this race, he profited from Turn 1 lottery up to 4th place in the first stint. And I really thought that we were going to see, well, at least for a little bit, I was like, could be a Tsunoda podium here, because Latifi's in front of him and he's going to pit. At some point, could genuinely see a Tsunoda podium. But he just seemed to not be able to handle his tyres well. It's something we've seen a bit of a theme of over his career so far. And, that is something that comes with experience and takes a couple of years to fully get on top of, is that tyre management. But, yeah, that meant that he had to pit quite early and was then not in the fight with, the Sainz and the Alonso sort of battle. And was asked to let Gasly through. Which he did. He didn't seem particularly happy.
And then whinged about it.
Didn't seem particularly happy. I can understand if he's, Gasly's been let through, but then isn't particularly pulling away. I can understand why he would be frustrated.
Did you see the interview? He was like, well, no, I didn't say that I wanted to be let back through. And then he goes on saying, well, what he did say, and then he goes, but I just said I wanted to be let back through. And it was like, oh, that's what you said you didn't say.
Yeah.
But,
his interviews always. He doesn't have the best English, does he? But I can't really blame him for that. He's still very young.
Yeah, and also how much Japanese can you speak?
Yeah, I could say absolutely nothing, and maybe like sushi. Yeah, that's about it.
I think we need to move on.
Yeah, but also what we didn't see of Tsunoda is he had a little bit of a spin late on in the race, which was why actually Gasly could pit and still come out ahead of him.
I saw that today, and his engineer was like, "It's okay, keep going."
Yeah.
Good boy, well done.
Yeah, you have to be that calming influence when it's a hothead like him. And yeah, I think that's nothing. Talking of calming influences from the engineer, that leads us nicely into Schumacher, who
did an incredible job this
Yeah,
season.
we actually. I was going to say the best thing. But certainly, one of the big positives of this race was we got to see him in some wheel-to-wheel battles and doing some defending, which we have barely been able to see. Well, firstly because the Haas have barely been televised, but secondly because it's only been him fighting his teammate, and most of the time it's him making an overtake and pulling away or something like that. But no, he had some excellent battles. The most memorable one, of course, would be against Verstappen.
I didn't remember that at all, but I remember the Russell one.
No. So the Verstappen one where they made a little bit of contact, and I was a bit like, ooh. I was fuming at Verstappen actually, like, what are you doing? Like, wheel bumping with a Haas. I know you're not having a good race and you've been compromised with contact, but stop, it was unnecessary. You could have just held this line and gone through.
I looked at it back, and I don't think it was as much of Verstappen's fault as I think we originally thought it was.
Yeah, either way, I don't think he was still moving over to take the natural line, but he could have just held on to the inside. The Haas is not going to be getting back past him around the outside of turn 4, I think it was.
I remember more him fighting with George because the commentators were like, and the two F2 champions.
Yeah.
Like, making a really big deal out of it, which was quite sweet.
Yeah. But, yeah, he in those battles he did well, but then, again, unseen, was he held off Giovinazzi, who, I believe he had any damage on his car. He held him off on pace at the end of the race, which meant that he didn't lose, which was nice.
I think he's a really good little driver, that one.
Yeah, he certainly is. He certainly showed that he is an incredibly competent race driver and he can do those battles.
You'd hope so.
Yeah. And we've covered everyone, I think, so far in this podcast, except for one person, so we may as well. I don't necessarily think he's worthy of a mention in this race, but
I think so.
May as well shout him out, and that's, of course, Schumacher's Haas teammate.
I think
Nikita
he's
Mazepin.
worthy of a mention just from the fact that Kimi decided to slam into the side of him.
Yeah.
And that was quite interesting.
Yeah, Mazepin, he actually had a really terrible start. But given that everyone else who was at the back was capitalising on this, he didn't get away off the line at all, and he was still at the back, I think, when everyone came in for the red flag. And yeah, then got, a little bit unlucky, I guess, that Kimi was released unsafely and broke his suspension, and then that was that. Nothing else really to add, I don't think.
I watched some of the press conference, and I just want to add something nice because I think everyone's really mean to him. And they asked who he would want as a teammate, anyone dead or alive, any era, and he was sitting with Gasly, and he said Gasly.
Yeah. What? Just because he was there?
I think so. But I just thought it was really sweet.
Yeah.
And
there we are. It's a question. Who would you want as your teammate?
me?
Yeah. I'll put you on the spot here. Shall I go first?
No, I'm looking at you like, why is that even a question?
I just thought I may as well bring it up, throw it in there. I think I would.
No, I mean, why are you even? I thought you'd know the answer. Is my.
Well, because you'd say it was George,
Yeah.
so you can just, be nice and close to him and touch his abs and.
No, I don't like touching people. No, I actually genuinely would quite enjoy having him as a teammate.
Yeah.
I think he's a really nice guy. I think he's a little bit dim, which is also fun. He's supposed to have quite a high IQ, but every time I watch him, I'm like, you're not.
Yeah. Well, I think we can make this work because I think I would take Latifi. We could have a Williams driver each. Because I just think he seems really nice and.
I really like. Have you seen them play Hungry Hippos?
Yeah, I have.
It's really sweet. George had no idea what it was. I was like, how are you a British kid that's never played Hungry Hippos?
Yeah.
But yeah, Latifi was great.
Yeah, I think he fulfills the Canadian stereotype nicely.
Yeah, I think he's nice.
Yeah, he'd make me pancakes and get me expensive maple syrup. So that'd be good.
Can I have a side note? Speaking, I know this is not strictly about Hungary, but it's related to this period of time in F1.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Tickton.
Oh yeah, that he's been dropped by Williams.
Yeah, and the drama with Latifi and his Steam thing. Twitch. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not down with kids.
Yeah, I'm not particularly sad to see him dropped by Williams. I don't think.
I'm disappointed because I can't tickle your tummy every time he comes on now.
He's still gonna be in F2 for the rest of the season. So he's gonna still have every opportunity then to tickle.
Yeah, I know, but
my tongue.
I thought I was gonna. Well, there was a little bit of me hoping that I'd have the next 20 years and he was gonna be like Gimme.
Yeah, he just seems like the sort of person who no F1 team would want him on their books because he seems to cause problems wherever he goes. He's quick, but you just have to weigh up that speed against the problems you get. So, people have said that about Alonso before as well. That I think it was actually Red Bull who said that they wouldn't take him because of the problems that come with him. But it looks like he might be a changed man now at Alpine. Ocon was certainly saying that after he won, that he was a great teammate.
He was so proud of his son.
He wasn't problematic. Yeah.
Picking Ocon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think with Tickton, it's like he's too much of a. He's just immature in so many ways, and he's so fiery, and not in a good way. Like I'm fiery in a good way, right?
Yeah, I guess.
No, he's just yeah.
Yeah.
But I just thought I'd throw that in there as a little ending point.
Yeah, we'd have mentioned all 20 drivers, so why not just add some more in? Anyone else you want to talk about? He's having a nice time having his Hulken baby.
Hulken baby.
Yeah. I think we spent quite a long time on this. Yeah.
No, it's fine.
Gonna save it for another time.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll tell you later.
So yeah, that will bring to close this podcast. Obviously, we've got the summer break coming up. We will. We were meant to do a bonus one between this one and Silverstone on the sprint race. I think over the summer break we'll definitely do that.
I think we've got a few things to
review on the sprint. We'll maybe do a bit of a mid-season review as well, and some bonus other fun things to fill the time. While we're twiddling our thumbs during the summer break. Excited already. Spa is one of my favourite tracks, so the countdown has already begun for me. But without further ado, thank you everyone for listening and watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, rate us, whatever it is on whatever platform you're listening or watching us. And yeah, let us know what you thought about this race, what you thought about the season so far. Who was at fault for that turn 1 incident? If you're crazy and don't think it was Bottas or Stroll.
It was Norris.
Yeah, Norris brake checked him. Yeah, that's what it was.
He did slam into the side of Verstappen.
Oh, there you go. As always, you can find us on social media at the F1 Couple, Instagram, Twitter, all of those things. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. Gonna have a little bit of a cry that we don't have a race for a long time now.
I'm just breathing a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
A lot of places.
Yes, thank you everyone, and we'll see you later.